Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last talk of February, the last talk on Karma Yoga until next time. So we will begin with our announcements. There will be a memorial service for Swami Yogeshinanda on Saturday, March 13th. We'll start it at 11 a.m. and nominally it will end at 12:30. It could end a little earlier, or a little later, depending on how many people want to talk. For those of you who aren't already aware, beloved Swami Yogeshinanda, the founder of this center, left the body on the morning of Saturday, February 13th. His passing was peaceful and uneventful, and he was surrounded by loved ones and brother monks in his room at the Trabuco Monastery in Southern California. We will hold a memorial service for the Swami on Saturday, March 13th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Our regular Saturday morning class will be suspended for that week. The Zoom link for this will be posted during the week before our memorial. After the formal part of the service, all who wish to share their memories of the Swami will have that opportunity. And so that's why the end of the gathering is indeterminate, because we don't know how many people will. We're not asking people to sign up or anything. We'll just invite on that morning. So if you do plan to, do prepare yourself so that you will make a tidy presentation. On the day following that, and this is why we've scheduled it on the 13th, because it is the weekend during which we will have Sri Ramakrishna's birthday celebration and puja. That'll be held on Sunday, March 14th from 11 a.m. to noon. We will live stream the celebration from our chapel. No in-person attendance. Join us on Zoom or Facebook Live. See your e-news or website, or our website, for details. And just a note about next Sunday, the first Sunday of March. Next Sunday, March 7th, Tom Carr will lead us in a discussion of meditation. As usual, we will meet for Tom's session on Zoom. Are there any announcements I should have made that I neglected to make? Okay. Today's topic, February has been a month for the study of Karma Yoga, a spiritual path leading to the abandonment of selfishness. As a karma yogi, you practice offering your actions and their results, as well as your perceptions, thoughts, and feelings to the divine presence. Even before fully knowing this presence, you hold firmly to the belief that the presence is within each person or other living being that you interact with or serve. Working and abiding in this spirit, you are increasingly able to release attachment to your activities and their results. This yields the freedom and contentment promised by Karma Yoga. In Chapter 2, Sri Krishna promises, even a little practice of this yoga will save you from the terrible wheel of rebirth and death. So today's particular topic related to Karma Yoga is Bhagavad Gita Chapter 4, which is titled Renunciation through Knowledge. This morning's talk will be on that renunciation through knowledge. As used by Sri Krishna, renounce does not mean to push away or suppress. It means to release or let go. In Chapter 4, he offers us the knowledge we need to understand his mission among us and explains what we are to let go if we are to take refuge in him and be truly free and happy or content. Now, I'll just remind you, this is not personal instruction. This is not something that you are expected to take away from here and do. It's a discussion of principles and practices. You take what you want, if anything at all, and leave the rest. It's not personal. It is about principles and practices and what Sri Krishna says. It's not instruction from here. So what knowledge does Sri Krishna offer you in Chapter 4? And what might you let go if you believe what he says? First, before we go ahead, are there any comments or questions about what's been said so far? Anything at all from anyone that will help ground you in order to move ahead here? Anything that is an open question or a comment that you want to make about what's been said? All right. I'm going to go through these 9 principles and practices one by one. And know that they are taken directly, though the language in some cases is not a quote. It's taken directly from the development of Chapter 4 as Sri Krishna spoke it to Arjuna. The first statement that he makes, which startles Arjuna, is Krishna says, I am the teacher from the dawn of time. And Arjuna objects, wait a minute. You say you taught these ancient sages? Weren't you just born this lifetime? And Sri Krishna says, no. You and I have lived many lifetimes, Arjuna. I remember them all, you do not. So I am the teacher from the dawn of time. Who is speaking? Sri Krishna clearly is talking to Arjuna, but who is behind this? We can speak of it as Ishvara, the creator, sustainer, protector, and transformer of the universe. Brahman with attributes. But as Krishna points out, though he has these attributes and is teaching and is acting, he is ever unaffected, changeless, eternal, infinite. And the implication is that you, in the truth of your being, are one with him and also eternal, changeless, and infinite as the Atman. So what are we to let go? Any idea that there is any other teacher but the divine. All teaching over time and in this moment comes from the divine presence. All truth comes from that. And so we can let go of any other idea. All lower knowledge, we can release our attachment to it. It is provisionally useful for our embodied presence, but it is not the truth with a capital T of which Krishna is speaking. I am the teacher of that truth, he said, from the dawn of time. And he said, and this is principle 2, I am the Lord of all that breathes, the author of everything. I am the Lord of all that breathes, the author of everything. There is only one doer. So what are we to release? We are to release the idea that we are the author of any action, any thought, any feeling, any perception. It is Krishna or Ishvara alone that is this. Somebody has there, yeah, okay, thank you for muting yourself. Ishvara, in the form of Krishna, says, I am the Lord of all that breathes, the author of everything. And he doesn't make any exceptions or qualifications. This is all the doing of the divine presence. So if we are to be free, he says, we must release the idea of doership, of ownership, of I, me, mindness. These are a cage for us. These are a cage for our eternal, changeless, infinite presence, which is reflected in us and is the truth of our being. So I am the Lord of all that breathes, the author of everything. Now, this often raises some questions in people. So is there any question from anyone about those first two things? That there is only one teacher, there is only one author of everything, including all the teachings of truth.
Brother Shankara, I have one question.
Yes, Sonny.
So Swami Vivekananda says only the Vedas cannot be interpreted. Everything else is up to interpretation, including the Bhagavad Gita. So how do we reconcile what Krishna says as the one teacher with what the Vedas are as the supreme canonical text?
They are the utterances of the divine presence. They are Shruti, that which was heard in the depths of their contemplation and meditation by the rishis. But the one speaking, the one that they heard, is Ishvara. And so there should be no contradiction between the Vedas and the Gita. The Gita is spoken of as the cream of the Upanishads, which are the spiritual teachings, the purely spiritual teachings of the Vedas. So there should be no contradiction. Though pundits can find contradictions. And as Sri Ramakrishna remarked, all scripture is a mixture of sand and sugar. So you have to sort out which is which. Thanks for asking that question, Sunny. That's right on the money.
Brother Shankara, this is Manjula from Virginia.
Yes.
My question is, if we release the idea, which I understand that we are the creator of our thoughts, ideas, and actions, and we all are a mixture of good actions and not so good actions, some more than the others, then how do we reconcile that? People who do so many good things and versus people who do mix and people who do awful things. If I'm understanding right, everything is God's will or Ishvara's will. Are we not letting the person's responsibility go? Help me understand that. Thank you.
Dear heart, we have two things at issue here. One is your personal transformation as a spiritual aspirant and your freedom. This is the context in which Krishna is speaking. Then we have the context of society. Society cannot permit antisocial behavior. Society must have its rules and regulations to control antisocial behavior. And so that is done. Each person is, every one of us, including the sages, are in the grip of ignorance. As Rama said to Lakshmana, when Vashishta, who was Rama's teacher and an illumined soul, was weeping for the death of his sons, and Lakshmana said to Rama, how can this be? This is an illumined soul. He said, this is all an illusion. So we will be, Rama says to Lakshmana, he who has knowledge also has ignorance. It's a condition of being embodied. Just how ignorant each person is and how that reflects in his behavior or her behavior is according, as we understand, to the will of God. And So we have society's necessity to control antisocial behavior. But if you read chapter 17 of the Gita, divine and demonic tendencies, Krishna explains how we're all on a spectrum. Each jiva is somewhere on a spectrum of pure ignorance and the behavior that attends to that, tamasic, antisocial, and so on, demonic, and the illumined, whose behavior is all but perfect. Now, we can't compare ourselves with Ishvara. We can't compare ourselves with the divine presence as Brahman with attributes. So the question of responsibility, in what context? In a social context, it's one thing. In your personal evolution as a spiritual aspirant, it's another thing. The more you're attached to the idea of responsibility, the more you will suffer the consequences of your actions as karma. The more you are free from that idea, and you can only be free from that idea through the purification of spiritual practice. As Sri Krishna says, your karma is burnt to ashes by the knowledge that arises in you. And so you won't do those things that would be, in another context, reprehensible. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
A very good question.
Brother Shankar,
Yes, Bhagirath.
thinking along the same lines that we are pursuing this morning, there are three words. They are not only rhyming, but they are intricately connected with each other. Dharma, karma, and marma. Dharma is duty, what is right. So there is no question, we have to know what is right.
Mhm.
Then only your karma will be a pure karma because it knows the inner truth. But then the third word is marma, that means the inner hard core of the truth. And once you understand the inner hard core of the truth, in that case, what you said earlier will be automatically obvious to you that God is the doer. The God doer is not the one who has head, mouth, eyes, mouth. Then again, you will confuse the picture. You will distort the picture. But when you understand him as an eternity, then it's an entirely different thing. For example, what you said was best summed up by a French surgeon, Dr. Perret. He said, I only close the wounds, God heals them. He exactly understood the principle of what you say. Okay, that means the moment he has done his dharma, by a karma as a surgeon, he understands the marma, the inner truth, that I am not the doer here. Once you apply that, a mother says, I have cooked the food, but I have not cooked it. The one to digest that food is God. I can only put it in your plate. And that's where I will stop. That's my limitation. By the same token, even a barber will say, I would only cut the hair. God will grow them again so that the job keeps on going.
Yes.
So you understand the final, that is the marma, the inner core. Once you do that, then the ultimate truth of what you said initially in the beginning becomes self-obvious. There is no controversy. There is no confusion. There is no doubt or ambiguity.
Right. It becomes self-evident from that perspective. Yes. You're absolutely right. And thank you for those definitions. That was just right.
There's Shankara.
Yes, dear.
At what point do we stop generating new karmas?
The moment you no longer see yourself as the doer. The moment you truly do not see yourself as the doer. And that only comes through the introspection of contemplation, concentration, and meditation, to where you discover, uncover the witness awareness that is beneath our ordinary waking consciousness. When you discover that witness consciousness, you see that what is happening in your body, around your body, is like a motion picture playing. You're watching the motion picture. You can react to it or not as you see fit. You can be involved in it, get entangled in it, get emotionally involved in it, or not. That's your choice, or it seems to be your choice. But the fact is that you see clearly that it is not you, that you are the witness of this. So the moment you really and truly have come to that conviction that I am the witness, not the doer, then you stop generating karma.
Thank you.
Hello, Brother Shankara. This is Chirag.
Yes.
Thank you for the explanation so far. I find it very just interesting, and I wanted to make sure I understand this all up to this point, and that is, are we saying that we are all the same ultimate thing, this Ishvara? Krishna is also part of Ishvara, and therefore I am also part of Krishna. I am also part of Ishvara. So
No. You are not part of Ishvara. Ishvara is within time, space, and causation, is a separate thing. You are part of Brahman, but you are not part of Ishvara. Ishvara is distinct. There is Ishvara and Ishvara's creation. You are part of Ishvara's creation as something who breathes, a jiva.
are we all connected in that or not?
Absolutely, irretrievably. There is only one. Consciousness is primary and is not plural.
Mm-hmm.
But consciousness has these two states of stillness, unmanifestation, and even something beyond that, Sri Ramakrishna says. But then there is the manifest state, which is a creation of the author of everything, of Ishvara. You are a created thing. You are created by the Atman for its purposes, as Krishna goes on to say in a later chapter. So you are not Ishvara. We are not Ishvara.
Has the Atman created Krishna?
No, the Atman did not create Krishna. The Atman is, this is where its language fails us. Ishvara is Brahman with attributes. Water in waves, as Sri Ramakrishna put it. As Vashishta said, consciousness in vibration. So there is no, though we are one with all that exists, that's not true as the thing that breathes. The thing that breathes comes and goes, or seems to come and go. That which is behind it, which is eternal, changeless, infinite, is Atman or Brahman. And this is where Sri Ramakrishna says the only way to truly grasp the truth of this is to come into the neighborhood of God, make the effort to know God. And then, as Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all else shall be added unto you, all knowledge and all else that you might want. But it escapes our ability to understand it in a left-brained manner. Is that satisfactory?
Yes, I'll contemplate on that. Thank you.
Okay. Third principle. I am always with you, Krishna speaking as Ishvara. I am always with you in every age to teach and uphold you. If you understand this, you come to, that is, take refuge in me. You come to me and are not compelled to be reborn. You may be reborn, but you're not compelled to. So the divine presence is always with us as this teacher creator to teach you and uphold you. And if you understand that, by understanding, it's not just a left brain intellectual grasp. It is, if you do this manana and meditation to understand that the divine presence is always with us to teach us and uphold us. And all we need to do is gain access to that through our prayer, contemplation, concentration, and meditation. Then we will come to that divine being and are able to take refuge there. Fourth principle, whatever path you travel, it is my path. All paths lead to me. Now, Krishna goes into some detail in chapter 4 about various paths, but he says they all lead to him. So what idea is it we are to release? What is it that we are to release to be free, to be more free? That the path I'm on is the right path, the only proper path, or anything of that nature. Sri Krishna says, I make them all work. Even those that seem to be leading through a dark place. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. So, whatever path you travel, Sri Krishna says, it is my path. All paths lead to me. Why? Because that's all that is. There is nothing other than that.
Brother Shankara,
Yes,
may I ask a question here?
sure.
Is this particular point helpful when thinking about judgment of good and bad, right and wrong, knowing that we're all part of whatever it is, that we're all on different paths and we all have different things that we may do, we all have different reasons for doing them, but we as us, as these human beings on this call right now, from a judgment of good and evil standpoint, it's not really going to do us any, it's not going to be helpful at all.
What is it that we wish to judge? What is it? Judgment is just a way of keeping reality at arm's length. Judgment is just a way to box things up and say, I understand that, and I don't have to think about it anymore. That's all judgment is. Judgment is a left brain activity that frees us from the suffering of having to struggle with the reality. The reality being there is only the one, no matter how it seems to us. It is only the one in its various attributes and aspects. So judgment is not at all an auspicious thing. Our judgment of good and evil is not auspicious. As was remarked on earlier, there are two contexts here. The context of the spiritual aspirant, that's the one just being spoken of, and then the social one. In the social one, society makes its rules about what is acceptable and what is not, what is good and evil. But that's none of our business. Clearly, no one who's appearing on this screen this Sunday morning is likely to be in trouble with the law. It could happen, but it's not likely. So, and if you are, it would be in the sense of John Lewis's or Henry David Thoreau's good trouble, taking a stand on principle against something that is built in, that built into the system that is inappropriate. But our love of judgment is taking the easy path so that we don't have to continue to struggle with our unwillingness to believe the truth as spoken by Sri Krishna. Now, as I said in the very beginning, there's absolutely no reason that anyone should take this personally and say, I must do this. There is no doctrine or dogma here. It's simply Krishna says this. Do we take it seriously? and then do the concomitant, do what goes along with it. That is, release our ideas that are otherwise. This is part of our manana. This is part of our considerations.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
when you say that, I totally understand on an intellectual level about whatever path you travel, it is going to lead to the divine. But we always come back to contemplation, concentration, and meditation.
Mm-hmm.
What about the choice between doing that and not doing that? Is not doing that a path that is going to also lead to the divine?
Yes, it's just a slower path.
Okay.
It's
That's
just a slower path. And we will all awaken.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I'm struggling with the way to express this. Intention, to me, based on my own experience, intention does play a role, I think, in being good and doing good in whatever sphere, either work or spirituality.
Yes.
So in one way, the intention comes from God, but I do feel like when I set my intentions clear to myself, I seem to do better with the progress. Help me understand, to reconcile that with what you're saying, everything comes from Ishvara, and we just
Where does the aspiration to do good come from that leads to these intentions? Sri Krishna says it comes from the fact that you are that. That behind the jiva is the Atman. The Atman is both, as Brahman is, both with and without attributes. The Atman, as you experience it, and you experience it more and more intensely as a spiritual aspirant, will prompt these aspirations that lead to good intentions.
Brother,
It will also occasionally
oh,
lead
sorry.
to misdirection, and
Mhm.
we'll fall down and bloody our nose and skin our knees. We make mistakes. So it isn't like it's all a smooth path. There are thorny places, and there are dips. This being embodied is an austerity that we've imposed upon ourselves. Sunny, was that you that spoke up?
Gaurav, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes, brother. I had a question. So if I do good, means I have felt it myself many times. If I do something for somebody selflessly, so-called, it makes me feel good. So can I say that is selfless work, or am I getting attached to the Maya of feeling good by doing something good for somebody?
Well, do you get attached or do you not? Do you simply receive it as a gift from God, the fact that you feel good when you've done something auspicious for someone else?
I feel that I'm blessed with things, and I am happy to share it among people, and it's all from blessing from up above.
Well, we'll just take exception to the from up above.
Oh no, yes, from deep within from the creator, whoever. I don't
from
believe.
within.
Yes, I'm past the thought of heaven and all that. I don't really.
So if we take
No,
Krishna
sorry.
seriously, and I'm not saying you must, there's no musts, but if we take Krishna seriously, he says, without any qualification, I am the author of everything, including attachment. There would be no manifestation without attachment. All three gunas are necessary for manifestation. So we slowly and slowly become attached to higher and higher things. This is very nicely explained by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra, replacing one samskara with a higher samskara, one mental impression with another. Ultimately, we're told, you spontaneously release all attachment to everything, and then you go into samadhi, the highest form of samadhi. And that's something Patanjali says, that's something that happens to you, not something that you do through aspiration, intention, or due to some attachment to any result. Did that get it?
Yes, sir. So can I say, like, if I'm doing something for somebody with no strings attached, I'm basically serving our creator, because I'm seeing God through that person too.
You're always serving the creator. That you have no choice if Krishna is telling us the truth. It's just how it's seen within you. There is nothing but the creator. So whether you're serving with strings attached or without strings attached, it has to do then with what kind of karma you're generating, as long as you feel you are the doer. As long as you feel I'm doing this, then there will be karma attached to it. When you do things without strings attached, genuinely without strings attached, then there is brighter karma. But that's because
I'm not expecting anything in return at all from those person. I'm just glad to help.
But the pronoun here was I. I am not expecting anything in return. I am doing something, but I am not expecting anything in return. Now that's a perfectly legitimate position. It's not. It's just not the highest position, as spoken of in chapter 4 by Sri Krishna.
Okay.
This next number 5 speaks directly to your question. You can act without attachment to results when you are poised in the tranquility of the Atman. That knowledge burns your karma to ashes. When you are poised in the tranquility of the Atman, this is a quote from Krishna, poised in the tranquility of the Atman. This comes to us through introspection. Call it prayer, call it contemplation, call it concentration, ultimately transitions to meditation. This is where we become aware of the presence of the Atman, and slowly our self-identification changes from the aspects of the jiva to the aspects of the Atman. So you can act without attachment to results. In other words, eliminating the I pronoun. You can act without attachment to results when you are poised in the tranquility of the Atman. That knowledge of the Atman burns your karma to ashes. And so it doesn't matter how you've acted or how you've thought before. And Krishna says this, you can have been the foulest of sinners. Those are his words. You can have been the foulest of sinners. Once this knowledge awakens within you, it burns your karma to ashes. You're no longer a prisoner of that karma. So if we're going to receive all of what's been said so far seriously, we are able then, principle 6, to take what God gives, what happens to the jiva. We take what God gives and we are contented. Then you can act and not be bound by your actions. Because you are seeing the action itself as a gift from that which is the author of everything, and the results are simply the prasad, the gift of the divine. You can take what God gives as the action to perform, and the results of that action, you can take those as what God gives and be contented. Then you can act and not be bound by your actions. And the summation is in that great verse, which is so often chanted and so little thought about, Om Brahmarpanam. Om Brahmarpanam is the summation of truth. Brahman is all in every action. Brahman is the offering. Brahman is the ritual. Brahman is he or she who offers to the fire that is Brahman. She or he who sees Brahman in every action attains to Brahman. Om Brahmarpanam is the summation of truth. Brahman is all in every action and every result of those actions. Principle 8. Therefore, all actions can be seen as sacrifice. All actions become a form of worship. This is what Krishna recommends. See all actions as sacrifice. All actions become a form of worship. Your life becomes a prayer to God. All actions become seen as sacrifice. All actions become a form of worship of the divine. Your life becomes a prayer to God. And the last, I'll just give a quote from Sri Krishna. In the light of that knowledge, you will see the entire creation within your own Atman and in me. That's the quote. In the light of that knowledge, you will see the entire creation within your own Atman and in me. And I'll now transition to another phrase. and you will know that peace that passeth all understanding. So this is a summary of chapter 4. If you take seriously what Krishna says, and as I said, there's no imperative that you must. There is no dogma that you should. But if it arises in you to take seriously what he said, and you live in the ways that he has suggested here, in the light of that knowledge, this is the quote, in the light of that knowledge, you will see the entire creation within your own Atman and in me, which, to speak to an earlier question, that's as close as we come to identification with Ishvara. To being one in anything other than spirit with Ishvara. And you will know that peace that passeth all understanding.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Uma.
this is something that I experienced as I was teaching Bhagavad Gita to my students, and you know, you have met some of them year before when they came.
Yes, I did. How delightful they were.
And one of them, very practically, I mean, these are modern students raised in this society and with the idea of passionate pursuit of results. If I do this, if I study this, I'm aiming for number one, I want to excel. I want to go and kill as a nail this subject. I want to be the best of all. So they are being brought up in this environment of cutthroat competition.
Mm-hmm.
To tell them that don't expect or don't work without the expectation of result seems to go against the grain for them. So the way, and it made me think what Krishna is saying here. He's not saying that you do not work toward certain result. All of us work for something to do our best, but that's where it should stop. It should not be that, oh, I want to be better than this person or that person. Because Krishna, if you recall in chapter 2, Krishna clearly says, Yogaha karmasu kaushalam, excel in whatever you are doing, and that itself will lead you to the result.
Mm-hmm.
And that itself is a philosophy that modern kids can pursue, that you don't have to, it's impossible not to think of the result. Of course, we are working towards certain goal. If I plant seeds of mango, I expect a mango plant. I don't expect something else. But the idea, I think, is not to be so anxiety-stricken, so much hung up on the result that you do not focus on your work right now. So that's how I explain to them. I hope I am correct, that you invest your energy in the present moment, do it so well that you compete. If you have to compete against your own base self, so that what comes out automatically, hopefully, meets your goal. That's what.
Yes, and there's absolutely, as you said, it's impossible not to think about the results.
Yes,
You're trying to create certain results.
yes,
Who's trying to create certain results?
right.
And who it will pay the penalty
Mm.
if you're attached to the outcome, the results.
Mhm.
Who will pay the penalty
Yeah.
if you're dejected because it didn't turn out the way you expected?
Mhm.
Who will pay the penalty if you're exultant
Yes.
because it turned out beyond your expectation?
Mhm. Yes.
There's a penalty for that too. And Patanjali is so skillful at explaining
Mm.
the difficulty with even what seem to us to be good things,
Mhm.
because we get attached to,
Right.
we want more of those good things.
Exactly.
And
So
we're
that ties.
disappointed
Yeah.
and dejected when we don't have them.
Yes. So get
So-
rid of the anxiety, and that ties it beautifully with the doership idea.
Oh,
As long
absolutely.
when you remove the doership idea, then you can work hard,
Yeah.
but not be consumed by worry.
And this is where we go back to chapter 3 and Krishna saying,
Yeah.
are you still thinking you're doing this? It's the gunas that are doing this.
Yes. Yes.
My tools, the gunas. I'm master of this Maya. I'm master of these gunas, this prakriti. I'm
Right.
master of it.
So that
And it
is,
is the gunas who are doing.
yeah.
Gunas attaching themselves to gunas. And so accept the doing as the gift of the divine presence through its instruments, and then accept whatever outcome comes as the prasad.
Thank you.
And what happens over time is you, like, in this aspect, like Ishvara, see yourself as eternal, changeless, and infinite. That's what Krishna means when he says, in the light of that knowledge, you will see the entire creation within your own Atman and in me.
Yes.
And as the Katha Upanishad says, to him who has that knowledge comes the peace that passeth all understanding, to none else, to none else.
Brother, can I say something about this?
Please, please,
Can
please.
I?
That's why we're here.
Yeah, this is Gaurav.
Yes.
So can we say that, like, all that anxiety of achieving a result, an objective, it all comes down to the fact that we get attached to things, and we have to perceive ourselves as it's a blessing from God that we are here to enjoy His creations, and then we move on. And no matter how hard we work, it really is not going to change the universe or anything. Just be as unattached to His blessings around and move on from it.
Well, who's moving on? Who is doing in the first place, and who is moving on? So the pronoun has been replaced, but the idea has not. That there is a doer who is doing this and then moving on. And in with regard to your changing the universe, Vivekananda is very explicit. And well, first I'll just quote Vivekananda. He said, the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. And in the context of modern physics, Albert Einstein said, when anything vibrates, the whole universe vibrates. There is no separation. Separation is an illusion. So as the jiva, that is Guru, vibrates, which is the nature of reality, vibration, it affects all of creation. Because you are in no way separate. Krishna says it, Vivekananda says it, Einstein says it. I think we have to take, at least provisionally, until we experience it for ourselves, that what they're saying is true. So it doesn't matter, Guru, how it seems to us. Our seeing, and therefore what seems to be true to us, will improve and improve as we do spiritual practice. By improve, I mean we see less contradiction, we see less reason for conflict and feeling of separation. We see more unity, we see more love. And those are the reasons for pursuing spiritual practice.
Can we say that pursuing the spiritual practices would obviously directly influence, would directly decrease anxiety and the pressure to actually succeed in whichever way you're thinking for this current generation of folks?
Well, one of the most remarkable things about pursuing spiritual practice is that it makes you more effective and efficient. So you're much more likely to succeed in worldly things as
you're
well.
More at peace, I guess.
Well, you're more at peace. You see more clearly.
Yeah.
You make better decisions.
Exactly.
So,
but how do you exactly explain this to young people who are just coming out of college? Means when I was at that age, I know, yes, I got to go get this, get that, make more money, move up.
Don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. Just love them. Just support and sustain them as best you can and to the extent that you feel motivated to. And if they ask you for something in the way of spiritual direction, then give it to them and then pass them on to Swami Sarvadevananda or somebody else if they continue to ask, but don't worry about them and don't try to change them. Just support and sustain them. Curb their, if they're still within your jurisdiction, so to speak, curb their excesses. But don't worry about them.
Like I was talking to my niece the other day, and she is going to go to college and everything. She's extremely worried about where she's going to get admitted to and all that. And I try to tell her, this is do as the best you can. You will get there, and finally you'll realize what the higher truths are. But I don't think I can reason with her just by saying
No,
those
of course
things.
not. Of course not. She's, as you said, she's very anxious and focused on where she's going to go to school. That's going to preoccupy her until it doesn't. I mean, when I was young, I was so stupid. I mean, really so stupid. By that, I mean ignorant. I made so many bad decisions.
Okay, so did I. I feel better now.
Yeah, but it didn't. But here we all sit. You know.
Me too.
Brother Shankara.
So, yes, dear.
This is funny, but it so much applies. Somebody said, youth is wasted on the young. Youth is so full of promise and wonderful, wonderful things that are really, pure and wholesome. But somehow, when you are at that age, I mean, I experience it with my grandchildren. My granddaughter, who is about to start college, the same thing, just like that gentleman.
I feel better now.
Who said, this college,
I'm actually surprised I'm still.
I just pat her shoulder, make her feel good that she's fine, she will do fine.
Yes.
And I don't lecture about, because they're not yet there.
Brahmadas, you're not muted. So you're absolutely right, Uma. You're absolutely right.
Youth is wasted.
And the
But brother, if I may just say one more thing, but if you look at like Swami Vivekananda, or even if you look at Jesus Christ or Buddha, they had their callings pretty early, and by the but
yeah.
not everybody is like at the same level of
read
karma.
read Vivekananda's Christ the Messenger.
Okay.
It's our destiny, unless we take liberation. It's our destiny to become a Christ. This is what Vivekananda says in no uncertain terms.
Oh.
And we have to remember what the Buddha said. The Buddha said he was not Ishvara. He said that he achieved this as the result of 500 lifetimes of
rebirth,
intense work. This is his own testimony. Now, people can contradict him, and the Mahayana Buddhists do, and say, oh, he was so Ishvara, he was so, their own word for it, he was so. But that's not what the Buddha said.
No.
The
My
Buddha
brother
said,
Shankara.
yes.
Oh, I just want to say I can relate a lot to what Gaurav and Uma are saying about their students, being a college student.
Yeah.
And I just want to comment on one thing Uma said, that there's a quote by a famous writer that a truly creative person is concerned with being successful and not with beating others.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, I don't always live up to that, and I don't think most people do, but I think this is something we can strive for.
Well,
successful, not in the term of material success I'm talking about. Successful in the sense of doing your utmost and your best with the best work.
Here's a beautiful corollary to what Uma is saying and what you just said, Sonny. Joseph Heller, the famous writer who wrote Catch-22, was at a big deal gathering one time, thrown by a billionaire. And someone remarked to him, Joseph, this man that's our host, he makes more in a day than you made from the success of your wildly successful book, Catch-22. And Heller said, yes, that's true. But I have one thing that he does not. I have enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very, very poignant statement.
Yes. content. I'm content.
Yes, he had contentment. Whereas the man, the billionaire who threw this lavish party, would never have enough. If he had 4 billion, he'd want 100 billion. If he had 100 billion, he'd want 400 billion.
And
And
oh, sorry. I just wanted to comment on what Gaurab said, that many of the spiritual masters, even at the age of 30, they were having struggles in trying to teach people. So even Buddha, when he was 35 or 36, he said the first time he tried to teach someone, he failed. So even at that old of an age, it showed he didn't have everything together, if that makes sense.
Teaching people, knowing things and teaching people are two different things.
Yeah.
I think you have to experience, like Swami Vivekananda says many times, you have to experience God to really believe it.
Yes.
And he literally asked Ramakrishna, have you seen God? Means you said you did.
Yes.
Until you believe it, until you experience it, you do not have to believe anything.
Right up toward the end of his life, what was he doing? He was
pursuing.
He was doing things that gave him new experiences of the divine, like
That's
the
right.
time that he spent 3 days in meditation on the mother.
Yes.
And then when he went to Kailash and so on and
Yes.
so forth. All of these things. So, but you know, there's this about Vivekananda. We revere Vivekananda and very appropriately so. But let's hear what Vivekananda says about who he is. When he returned from the West after his first successes here, when he returned in 1897, and he went to see Holy Mother, Holy Mother was praising him and saying how wonderful his successes had been and how well he had done. And he waited till she was finished, and then he said, "O Mother, you know, by your mere wish, you could raise up thousands of Vivekananda." So this is, again, Vivekananda was setting himself apart from the divine presence as it appeared as Ishvara and Ishwari in the form of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. And yes, you know, but you know, Vivekananda, we have to understand Vivekananda was an ever free soul. He was never bound. So whenever he took human form, he very quickly understood who he was and was practicing meditation when he was just a boy. So again, we're at risk when we compare ourselves with anyone. Each of us is unique.
No. Yes, absolutely.
So anything else from anyone, dears? This is exactly what we should be doing. This is wonderful.
Shankara,
Yes, dear.
this gets back to your talk. I just missed one little piece of it, and I'm wondering if you could, the seventh principle, what was that again?
Okay, the seventh one is, it has to do with Om Brahmarpanam.
Okay,
The Om Brahmarpanam is the summation of truth.
okay,
That one verse is the summation of truth.
okay,
Brahman is the ritual. Brahman is the offering. Brahman is the ritual. Brahman is she or he who offers to the fire that is Brahman. He or she who sees Brahman in every action attains to Brahman.
Yes.
Brahman is all
Okay.
and in every action, and that's what Krishna says in the beginning. I am that, I teach that, and I am the author of that. Thank you, Janaki.
Sure.
Anyone else?
And could you also repeat what you said about the tranquility of the Atman?
Okay, let me find that again. I want to read it exactly because it's a quote.
And that's a quote from Bhagavad Gita, correct?
It's a quote from chapter 4. You can act without attachment when you are, quote, poised in the tranquility of the Atman. That knowledge burns your karma to ashes. You can act without attachment when you are poised in the tranquility of the Atman. That knowledge that allows you to be so poised burns your karma to ashes.
And by Atman, we mean our soul, correct?
Oh, Atman is Atman. This word soul is not a, it's very difficult because the answer is yes, provisionally, Brahmadas. We'd have to talk about it. The Atman goes beyond the Christian idea of soul. It goes to what Christ meant when he said, I and my Father are one, and I am the vine, ye are the branches. In other words, there's one, only one. There's this. So yes.
So it seems that Atman means the higher self then, for someone who doesn't understand Sanskrit. That's how we can interpret that.
It is yourself. It is yourself, Brahmadas. That which is speaking now is an action of Ishvara with attributes, or the Atman. Yes. That's what Krishna says. I am the author of everything, including what you just said.
Question, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Robert.
Is Ishvara a projection of Brahman from Brahman?
Brahman is the potential for everything.
Yes.
But it is not in the sense that we think of as active. In an absolutely inscrutable manner, from that potential arises manifestation. And if you want to read the most concise definition of this, read chapter 6 of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, Absolute and Manifestation. But he said it is extremely difficult to grasp how the absolute becomes the relative. And it is not possible to define it in an intellectually satisfactory manner. It must be experienced. in our inner being. But Ishvara is, we understand it to be. There's two forms of Brahman: Nirguna Brahman, that is Brahman without the gunas, without the instruments of action, and Saguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman is Brahman with the instruments of action. Now, but the Saguna Brahman is Ishvara, who is the master of those instruments of action. But this is where it gets so tangled and paradoxical, and so it's best perhaps just to accept Krishna as his word. We know that he's speaking as Ishvara, and he says, I am the author of everything. That is, everything that exists within time, space, and causation, which is everything. I know that's not a satisfactory answer, Robert.
Brother Shankar,
Yes, Robert. Yes, Bhagavad.
Robert's question was so good, so genuine. Your answer was very good also. But at the same time, the caveat of our tremendous discussion today is that we may change our crude ego to a subtle ego. And that subtle ego is sometimes more dangerous. That means it is the responsibility of every listener today to go and until the next Sunday at least, analyze every action from that standpoint. Was it crude ego? No, I believe in God. Was it a subtle ego? Yes, I believe in myself. That when is eliminated, and what you said initially, Tadiyam vastu govinda tubhyameva arpitam. That means it was your thing to begin with, and I'm giving back to you. Then that happens, then most of the questions will not even arise. At every point in life that we do, we'll be able to see the subtle ego from the crude ego. Subtle ego, you have to not to retain, eliminate it. Remember that I is gone, and then everything is gone. And then what Krishna says will come back to you. That's the way I feel.
Thank you, Bhagavad.
So is it like replacing I with God? Is that what we are saying? Just as Swami Vivekananda says too. So instead of saying my or me or I, it is his.
Well, this is what happens spontaneously as we pursue spiritual life. We start with the idea of I am, then something happens within us. And of course, we have that feeling of I am. Something happens in us, and we have the experience of reverence or awe. And we say, all right, I am, and something else he or she is. And then over time, we begin to understand that that he or she that is, that Ishvara, Ishwari, that is what is the reality that Krishna was speaking of in chapter 4 today. And so rather than I am and he or she is, it becomes he or she is and I am. And therefore I am. As Ramakrishna says, this is the position of the mediocre devotee. Then the superior devotee comes to the conclusion, he or she alone is. And this feeling of I am was just a shadow, as in that wonderful Upanishadic story of the two birds in the tree. So, but this is not, again, there's no imperatives here. We come to these realizations slowly and slowly over time by pursuit of what Sri Ramakrishna calls the ripe ego. The ripe ego is harmless, and the ripe ego says, God alone is the doer. I am the result of that doing.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
may I quote Mahatma Gandhi?
Why would you not?
No, regarding the absolute versus the relative truth. This is what he says in introduction to his autobiography. He says, he calls it eternal principle of truth. I worship God as truth only. I have not yet found him, but I'm seeking after him. And he adds, but as long as I have not realized the absolute truth, so long must I hold by the relative truth. So that makes it very clear that although we may aim at that absolute truth, in our day-to-day world, we have to see that until we keep our pursuit on, but until we reach that point, which is extremely rare, very, very, very few, like Ramakrishna or Brahma or Raman Maharshi or Swami Vivekananda can get there. We have to deal and work in this relative world, but we can change our perspective, and whatever we do, we can escalate, we can spiritualize our relative world as far as possible.
Yes, indeed.
That's what I get from this.
That's exactly what Swami Sridharananda said. Divinize your life.
Yeah.
And Swami Prabhupada put it this way, give everything a Godward turn.
Yes.
Think of everything in terms of God.
Yeah.
And do we do it every moment? Of course we don't. But the more we do it, the more it happens. The more it happens, the more we see it. The more we see it, the more we emphasize it.
Yeah.
And so it's an ascending spiral.
Yes.
It's an ascending spiral.
Beautiful.
Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. This was such a wonderful discussion. Such a wonder. And of course, Sri Krishna's words are going to provoke this kind of discussion. And they should. So we'll close with this wonderful translation by Swami Yogeshinanda of an ancient prayer for peace. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear. Haima?
Yes, thank you, Brother Shankara, and thanks everyone.
Oh, you were saying thank you. Yes,
This
well,
Brother
thank you for being with us. And thank you all for your contributions. This is how we study the art of spirituality together. And so until next time, which of course, if you choose to join us, will be Monday evening for our reading and discussion group of the book, Love Poems from God. Then Tuesday, we study Holy Mother's life at 8 p.m. These two, the evening classes, these are all Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are all evening classes at 8. And then on Wednesday, we're studying Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. And then Saturdays at 11 a.m., we're studying the book Realizing God. And then next Sunday, Tom Carr will lead us in a discussion about meditation.
Thank you, brother.
Bye-bye all.
Bye.
Jai Shri
Bye.
Guru
Bye.
Maharaj Ji ki
Thank you so
Jai,
much.
Durga Durga Durga.
Durga, Durga, Durga.
May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. And may you go forward in the Mother's loving and protective embrace. Jai, Jai, Jai. See you soon.
See you soon.